with that, let me ask you this. I realized last week I said it, and then we did the thing. I'm like, well, I said it, and then I said it again on the thing, so I shouldn't say it twice. I should just let it go. So I got a couple for you. It's Thanksgiving, right? So
Indeed.
First I need you to tell me what you're thankful for.
Ooh, what am I thankful for?
Yeah. I can go first
So
if
many
if
things.
you want me to.
No, I got this. I'm thankful for a healthy family.
Yep.
Everybody in my family is healthy, which, sad face, some of our family friends really close to us are not in that same exact situation. So it's very, very, makes you really, really grateful for actually having that around, because you got it until you don't, and then life is way different. Very thankful for that. Thankful to have a solid job that I don't need to worry about, it's not killing me slowly, and like, well, that shit's real too, you know.
That's a good one.
I'm happy about that.
No, that's a good
Wifey's loving her new gig. I mean, it's early, but she's loving it, doing her new career path. I got a small but solid group of friends that I'm still very thankful for today, and I mean, that's I'm thankful that my truck situation is about to be resolved, so I'm very excited about that too. Everything's looking up towards the end of the year here. I'm very, very excited about it. Thankful for still being able to do this show, which is always a pleasure. It's basically the closest thing I have to therapy, so I don't know what I would do without it.
Yeah.
The end of the year comes around, we take our 1 month break, and it always so cathartic to get back to it. You don't realize how healthy something like this is until you don't do it anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll go with that. Seems relatively surface, but solid.
No, that's perfect. It's perfect.
What about you?
Happy family, 2 beautiful children, good wife, or fantastic wife. I'm thankful to be moving forward with my life, to just be moving on, making progress. Very thankful for that. I'm thankful to be making progress on the show, for us to be kind of figuring out, honing our lane. Thankful for all the listeners, for everybody who comes here spends time with us, because just spending the amount of time with us that people do is ridiculous.
Yes.
It's bizarre to me that anybody would want to spend this much time with us.
Exponentially more enjoyable too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's good stuff.
Yeah. On a more show-related front,
indeed.
Right, now that we know what everyone is thankful for, do you think? And I thought of this when I was looking into the history of the Colorado shooter the other day, right? So I was just thinking about circumstances and stuff like that. Do you think that people are generally good or bad?
Ooh. Do I think they're generally good or generally bad?
Yeah.
I usually phrase it like good or evil.
Yeah.
But the idea is the same.
Yeah. Same question. I wouldn't be too harsh.
God, I don't know, because I used to think both ways about this. Like, I thought at one point, like, most people are just inherently selfish, and so that generally would make them more bad. But then I don't really believe that anymore. I don't know if necessarily people are good, but I think inherently people are selfish to a certain degree, and I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as a good thing, because rational self-interest, if you will, take that road down there, you are generally will try to be a better person to you, yourself, the people around you and stuff like that, because that will make your life easier and better as you go along. So I guess I'll fall in the category of, I think most people are generally good. Generally. Some people are just bad.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, I think most people are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think most people are really stupid, but, that's fine. You could still be a good, stupid person.
A well-intentioned idiot. Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
A well-intentioned idiot.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think I would say the same thing, that I think that most people are generally good. But I also think that human beings are still very, very, very close to animals, and it doesn't take much for what they call it, the thin veil of society or civilization or whatever. It doesn't take much for that to be removed.
Yeah.
I think most people
thin veneer.
Yeah, something like that. It doesn't really
There's
matter,
a turn of phrase out there somewhere.
So I think people are generally good, but put in trying situations, it does not take much for most of those good people to do things that they would regret in ideal circumstances.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You drop anybody into the fucking woods, they become a savage.
Right.
Ideally.
And then I have kind of a 2A, not like Second Amendment, but 2A question.
Okay.
Is, do you think, because there's kind of I'm sure there's like an actual like psychiatric theory behind it, but do you think that if you take two people and subject them, two different people, subject them to like the exact same circumstances, that they will turn out the exact same way?
Ooh, no, I don't. Mostly because people have free will and the ability to come to conclusions in a different manner. So even if they're living the same exact circumstances, it's kind of like the nature versus nurture discussion, right? I mean, I think you can essentially have two people. I mean, just look at like twins growing up in the same household that will generally have a very, very similar upbringing. I mean, you'd have to get into like a weird isolation thing and do like some weird human experiment for it to be absolutely exact. But no, I think even with the closest thing we have to a control group at that point, people are still going to make different decisions at one point or another and come to their own conclusions. And I would not be surprised if there's like a couple twins out there where one is like a pro-gun person, one's like an anti-gun person.
Yeah.
Just how they perceive the world at that point is going to be different regardless on their upbringing, I guess. You could be in like a traumatic situation at some point that's going to change your view on something, or, while the other person doesn't. But yeah, I'd be really interested in that though. If like we could do like a real Truman-esque or Truman Show-esque like experiment on a couple people someday.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting in some dystopian world.
So I know there are a lot of people that believe that, that you're almost like a victim of your circumstances, that like, well, had they not been subjected to these conditions, then maybe this wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. And I think that there's merit to that, but I agree that I move forward in my life. The people have agency. You have independent agency, individual agency to do what you want, to make decisions, that you don't have to make those decisions if you do bad shit and you aren't. It's not justification for you to act that way because of your circumstances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, everybody has the power to rise above their own circumstances, to learn lessons from the things they did or were subject to. I mean, in this particular case, because we're going to get deep into that story in one of the other topics, right? Today?
I don't have anything like a deep dive into that particular story. I don't. We certainly can take a look into it. I don't have any problem with that. I don't.
But regardless, because of what we know now about that guy, that shooter that shot up the Q nightclub, he had it seems to be at a very, very fucked up upbringing.
Right.
Have you seen the video of his dad?
No.
Oh my God, we'll watch that later. He's a piece of shit, this guy. But it hasn't really been around either, but his mom has like had a lot of problems with the law and has like multiple active warrants in multiple states at this point, and like went to go live with his grandparents for a while, changed the name, the whole 9 yards. But that's still, there's no amount of torment and torture and stuff like that you would live through as a kid that would ultimately justify you going down that path. You can always make a better decision. Mind you, there's so many things at play there, but like you can develop, mental illness due to those types of things that'll make you do one thing or another. But in some cases, you may have a little less, I don't even want to say it, but you might be slightly less culpable for that because you are mentally ill after a certain point.
Right.
But that's a whole nother conversation there, because ultimately you're still responsible because you still go do the thing. But certainly, it's all just like weights, man. It's all just weights and different strings pulling on people's lives and affecting them different ways. But you can always go a different path.
And so much of the debate around firearms comes down to choice. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about access to tools and stuff like that anybody can get access to, you're talking about
the
choice.
chainsaws.
You're talking about the decisions that people make when they have access to these things, and you can't no one can control that. You can't legislate morality. You can't force people to follow the law. That's why even in places with gun laws and stuff like that, there are still gun crimes that are committed because you can't force people to follow the law. There's nothing. It's choice.
That's not how laws work.
No, it is choice that holds you, that binds you to that. If you don't want to follow that law, you don't follow that law, and there's nothing anyone can do about it until they find out that you've broken that law. You know, so.
Yeah, I think, and in this particular situation, all the laws were in place from all the shootings and stuff we've gone through for the last few years, like all the various pieces of legislation and all the ideas and stuff that people have, talked about to try to implement to try to stop things like this from happening. All of those were in place for this particular situation,
The red flag laws and
they
stuff in
absolutely
Colorado.
did do nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, they have red flag stuff. There was. As per the usual, this individual was known to law enforcement for reasons. Saw the video that he streamed for that bomb threat that he called in when he took his mom when he kidnapped his mom in his house and all that stuff. And the neighbors called in the bomb threat, had a standoff with the police and all that. I watched a little bit of that his live stream from that event, and I don't know how you don't institutionalize an individual after that situation, much less not bring him into the justice system at some point.
And
it's just wild.
I think anybody who's been watching this show for any period of time knows that I'm not an advocate for putting people on a list, right?
Yeah.
In a world where that's what we're doing, right? That's what we're doing. That's the idea. That's why the red flag laws exist. That's why these things are there. Again, I'm not an advocate for these. I think these are unconstitutional. I don't think we should be doing them, right? But in a world where we are already doing them, isn't that what this is for? To stop someone who already has a history of extreme violence, right? Of infringing on other people's rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Isn't that what the point of this is? And if this is not going to stop this person, it should be used to stop me instead. Is that what we're talking about? That if someone has a question about me, even though there's no evidence that I'll do something in the future, someone has a question, it should be used on me instead of someone where there's evidence of it, right? Where a DA has chosen to release this person back into society instead of keep them in jail, or something that's actually within their power of doing, right, within the structure that we currently live under.
Yeah. It's like we're a nation of we're a society,
Yeah.
and we understand that, regardless of how just or unjust it is, but we are still technically a society of rules and laws and shit like that. And if this is the system that we are under, you're failing to live up to your own legal standards at that point. Like you're not following through with the system of laws and procedures and stuff that you deemed necessary to put into place, which we could argue about one way or the other, before the fact, after the fact, whatever. But like you said, that's the system in place. And regardless, none of that stuff did anything. It was all just useless, which sad. And I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about institutionalization lately, about like for lack of a better term, like mental wards and shit like that, because it was something we used to do very regularly in this country, involuntarily, which is terrifying when you think about it. But also there's a part of me goes like, probably could use a little bit of that these days. Hey everybody, Colin here from Salt of the Streets. Thank you for watching today's edition of Salty Shorts. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to check out the full episode right here on the Salt of the Streets YouTube channel. Please give us a like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this with all your friends. And you too can become a spreader of the message of liberty. Thanks.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready.